I believe so much in sustainable energy that I want to make a commitment, and the federal government, using all of its resources, will develop an electric car with appropriate battery power that will change the face of the automobile industry in the world. Was that very doable? Now, Bill Clinton was elected in 1992, 17 years ago.
Yeah. You could have made a reasonably good electric car around that time for a lot of investment.
And should that have been done? Should the U.S. government have made that kind of... Otherwise, you will not be able to change the driving habits of Americans. Was it a worthwhile expenditure at that time?
I think it probably would have been a worthwhile expenditure, but the thing that really helps electric cars is lithium-ion.
Right. And when did that come around? I mean, explain why batteries has always been the great dilemma for developing an electric car.
Sure. Well, the energy contained within a battery is so much less than is contained in gasoline that, I mean, it's really it's hard to quite describe. Another way to put it is the Tesla battery pack in the Roadster, which is the most advanced battery pack in the world.
Right.
The common reference is to call what is actually a cell a battery.
Right.
So a cell is the little single can of chemicals, and then if you have multiple cells, that's what actually a battery.
Right.
That's literally what a battery means.
Right. Multiple cells.
Multiple cells.
Right.
And usually, as the batteries get bigger and bigger, they get harder and harder to deal with. So the cell that we use is a commodity cell.
Right. It's buy it anywhere.
Pretty much, and it's the same sort of thing that's in any number of laptops.
Right.
The challenge is combining those cells and having thousands of them, making sure they're safe, making sure they'll last for 200,000 miles or 100,000, over bumps and potholes and extremes of temperature, and safe in a crash, and that compounds the problem massively. And you've got to make sure the charges and temperatures balanced across the whole thing. So the difficulty is really at the pack level much more than it is at the cell level. And that's really where the single biggest area of Tesla's expertise. Although I should point out that Tesla also has, we design and build the motor and the power electronics and the software that manages the whole thing. So those are important too. But the battery is the single most important thing. And the Tesla battery pack, to reference it to gasoline, it weighs about 1,000 pounds. And it has the energy content of 2.5 gallons of gasoline. So that
means you've got to have a lot of charges.
Well, what that means is that, but there's an advantage because the consumption of that energy is much more efficient in an electric car, and this is I'll get to why is the Tesla Roadster twice as efficient as a Toyota Prius, which is obviously not a sports car,
right?
And the reason is because an electric motor is fundamentally super efficient at turning energy into motion. So a good electric motor, such as the one that we have in the Tesla Roadster, is about 90% efficient at turning the electricity into motion, whereas a gasoline internal combustion engine is somewhere typically in the range of around 17 or 18%. Most of what it does is generate heat. So even though it's only 2.5 gallons of gasoline, that 2.5 gallons of energy content goes really far compared with if you had if that was
compared to the Prius, but also compared to the new GM Volt.
Right.
How does it do in comparison with the Volt?
The Volt is a different architecture. It uses it's a plug-in hybrid architecture. So it's I think got about a 40-mile or so battery pack.
That's what they say, right?
And then there's an engine with a generator that allows you to go beyond the 40 miles.
Exactly.
Right. And whereas ours is pure electric. And the strategy that we've decided to hew to is a pure electric strategy. I mean, I've been criticized sometimes for responding to questions like yours to explain why we've gone pure electric, and then people have taken that to be an attack on the Volt, which is not the case. I hope the Volt succeeds, and I think it can be a pretty good car and all that kind of thing.
I don't take this as an attack. I'm asking questions.
It's not, but I just wanted to put that.
Hey, what I hope to do in this conversation with you is figure out what it is you've done, because you've got a fair amount of attention.
Sure.
Figure out why you're not further along than you are, or figure out why you are, and what your expectations are to do. And where is the game for you?
I think it's taken a while for the industry to come around to this point, but I think it's largely at this point, it's almost become conventional wisdom that the future is electric cars.
Right.
The only question is
Exactly.
this interim period of this transitional period. But if you look at the pace of battery improvement, it's clear that's why I mean it's inevitable.
Right.
The future will be entirely electric.
And the irony of all this conversation is that in the last year, a year before its bankruptcy, General Motors had announced that the Bolt, was the key to their future as an automobile company.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, one area of criticism I think that is valid regarding GM is
Prius
that
helped them come to that conclusion, by the way.
Well, they should have probably done a Prius or something like that. But I think if they had the EV1,
right, exactly, which didn't work, but didn't make it for reasons I'm not clear.
Right, and
as a marketing success.
Yeah, Chris Payne did a movie, Who Killed the Electric Car, about it, and it was sort of trying to investigate that issue. But I think it's notable that in that movie it shows that the customers who had the EV1, the cars had to be taken away from them and crushed, and they held a candlelit vigil.
Right.
If you have people that really love a product to the degree that they're willing to hold a candlelit vigil for it, that says, hey, maybe you should make an EV too.
It certainly does say that, So the car that I drove today, the Roadster 2, I think it was a Roadster before this. This is second iteration of it.
Yeah.
Came through production what year?
The first Roadster number 1, the first production Roadster, which was fully Department of Transport legal and all that sort of stuff.
Met all the standards.
Yeah. It was February of last year, and that was my car.
That was the car, your car?
Yeah.
Meaning what? The one
production
that you
unit 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so then you decided immediately to make improvements on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a little rough going in the beginning, and we had some issues with some of the powertrain components.
Right.
In fact, not the hard stuff, but the stuff that's sort of theoretically easier. We were able to fix those and get production ramped up, and now we're at the point where we're delivering about 20 to 25 cars a week.
You know that Tata Motors, obviously
I know Ratan Tata.
Take for a moment what he's doing in India.
Yeah.
Developing a little sedan for $2,300, a nano.
Right.
Where do you put that in the whole equation of where the future of cars are?
Well, I think it's a good idea to have affordable cars. I think the problem with something like the Nano, which I think, by the way, I would say a problem. I think it's a great idea, and Ratan is a gentleman and a scholar and an awesome guy all around.
All of those I agree with. Yes,
yeah.
It's hard not to.
Yeah, exactly. I think where it's going to become challenging in the future is as the price of gasoline rises. The cost of acquiring the car is much less of an issue than the cost of operating the car.
Right.
And I think oil is
and
going
it's
to
inevitable
be very,
that it's already
very,
moving back up. And
yeah.
Do you have some assumptions in your own calculations as to where oil will level off?
I think it will exceed the numbers we've seen last year.
144.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. I think we'll see it start to approach $200 and beyond
by 2010, 11, 12, somewhere in there.
I'd say whenever the next boom is. So if let's say the next boom is 4 years from now, it'll be around that point.
Of all your businesses, which one do you care the most about?
Well, right now my time is split roughly evenly between Tesla and SpaceX. So I guess it would be pretty even between the two. And Solar City is doing great on its own, and the two co-founders there, Lyndon and Peter Rive, have done a phenomenal job, and thankfully it requires very little of my attention.
Right now, the reason to create a sports car, a roadster, as the first stage of this, is because it attracts attention, or what?
Oh, so great question. So, because people often misinterpret why we have created a sports car, because they will say, the implication will be
sports cars for rich guys is not a way to solve the energy problem.
Right, exactly. And they would sort of that I feel that there was somehow a shortage of sports cars for rich guys or something like that, and that was the problem.
That's right.
And not if any new technology is expensive when it starts out. And you can point to pretty much anything, because the first thing that engineers are trying to do is make it work, and then when you make it work, then you optimize and you optimize and you optimize. And if you look at the early days of computers or cell phones or almost anything, even the early days of gasoline cars, they used to be toys for rich people until they were made affordable and mass production.
Henry Ford came along.
Yeah, and then you combine that
he
with
invented the car.
Yeah,
good, right?
and then you combine that with the fact that we're just a little startup, there's just no way that we could afford $1 billion to make a giant car plant that would make hundreds of thousands of cars a year, because that's the kind of volume you have to get to make cheap cars. And it's also the first iteration of the technology. So we had both a volume problem and a new technology problem. And so that naturally you have to
reach scale.
You have to reach scale, and you have to work the bugs out of the system, and so you got to make it, and you want to make your mistakes at a small scale.
Okay, so how's that going? Reaching scale and being able to create a business plan that will enable you to reach a large audience, and create and continue the development of the technology that will make it even more attractive.
It's going really well, actually.